So at what point are you willing to put down your whole activist platform and say, hey, you know what, my whole paradigm is wrong? What we need is an intelligent moderate, which I like to think of myself as an intelligent moderate. As a person of the Islamic faith, aggression is condemned in all forms, okay, and truth is pursued, okay? But I'm not going to subscribe to a lie. That's intelligent moderate, okay? Whereas the typical moderate will take the 9/11 truth thesis, the mainstream thesis, and try to construct an apologetic version of Islam around that. That is false, in my opinion. Okay, because 9/11 truth was a covert op. It was the militant Islamic networks, although they do exist, and the ideologies exist, we're not responsible for what happened there. Hopelessness, that's the last thing. And that's one of the things I think, I mean, from the perspective of covert operation, 9/11 was one of the most sloppiest jobs ever. If you really think about it, thanks to Nick Levis, who can deconstruct any argument. Nick's standing back there, he's from New York 9/11 Truth. You can deconstruct the argument using even mainstream evidence now. It's one of the sloppiest covert ops ever, and I think there's a signal there for people who seek truth. That, hey, we can be as sloppy as we want, what are you going to do about it? And it does inculcate a sense of hopelessness in people, and the way you deal with that hopelessness and burnout is a personal thing. I mean, from a faith, spiritual perspective, there's one way. From a purely secular perspective, there's another way, and I don't want to go into that. But a lot of these weaknesses, the psychological obstructions to embracing 9/11 truth are very real, and it should concern all of us, right? The activist who has a vested interest not to look at 9/11 truth, even though they are united for peace and justice, 9/11 truth is staring them in the face. What is keeping them from embracing it? Right? Is it something evil? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just psychological behavior. I'm getting paid salaries for my speaking engagements to persist in maintaining this shallow dialectic. When something hardcore truth comes along, do I have the guts to say, hey, I was wrong? Or am I going to just keep saying what I say and, in effect, keep the lie perpetrating? And I'll leave you with the words of one of the, actually an Islamic sage who lived in the century. He said that an affirmation of truth or any effort on behalf of truth is never in vain, even if we cannot from beforehand measure the value or outcome of such an activity. Moreover, we have no choice in the matter. Once we know the truth, we must needs live in it and fight for it. But what we must avoid at any price is to let ourselves bask in illusions. Even if, at this moment, the horizon seems as dark as possible, one must not forget that in a perhaps unavoidably distant future, the victory is ours, and cannot but be ours. Truth by nature conquers all obstacles. Vincit omnia veritas, right? That's what that means. I don't know of any nation right now in the Islamic world that would even have a pretension to try to claim its shot at empiredom. There's a dialectic that's called Darul Islam versus Darul Harb, and this might address what you're getting at. In theory, during the early dynastic expansions of Islam, within 100 years, it sort of, politically speaking, not spiritually speaking, spread from Spain into China. That was considered Darul Islam. That's a place where theoretically you were free to worship one God in whatever outward form you wished, and places outside of that were hostile to their agendas was considered Darul Harb, which is the home of chaos and warfare. So you can see a lot of these reformist Islamic authors, Sayyid Qutb for one, who was behind the Islamic resurgence in Egypt, one of the pillars of that. He talks about this engaging conflict between the forces of Darul Harb, which are things that are opposed to Islam, versus Islam. Now, again, how do you define Islam? What is he talking about? Is America Darul Harb? You know, is it in a state of warfare against the ideals of peace and justice and all that stuff? I don't know, but that kind of, we want Darul Islam back, is there. I don't think there's any danger, believe me, unless it's allowed. There's no danger of any kind of Islamic rogue nation or anyone overrunning anything militarily. That's my opinion, yeah. I talked about fear, legitimate fear, especially from the immigrant populations in speaking out. And that's why I said it's very helpful to have white America. You know, forgive the crassness, but it's true. When you have a white American without an accent talking like this, I'm sort of the next best thing. I don't have an accent, but I still have the brown skin. I've got the weird look. But when you have a white American speaking out like this, it's very safe. But when you have a Muslim involved in any way with this, it gets very hazardous. And the last thing I want to say, the Patriot Act is such a primary example. All of my Muslim activist friends are spinning about the Patriot Act. They're going to the detention camps, they're putting up signs and everything. The catalyst for the Patriot Act was the 9/11 thesis, the mainstream thesis. What is wrong with these people in saying, hey, you know what, the thesis is false? But instead they're swallowing the thesis and they're saying, no, but those were bad Muslims, don't blame us for what the bad Muslims do. And they're going out and, I mean, I just don't understand that. The Patriot Act is huge. You have to ask yourself why.
Towards 9/11.
Right.
They're so afraid that a lot of Muslims, you will not see a lot of Muslims in this conference. They are afraid that FBI will be taking the names of Muslims who are attending this conference. I want to ask you, aren't you afraid of FBI as a Muslim is speaking out with the people of 9/11?
Live free or die, buddy.
Yeah, sure. I'm afraid my mother and father can't stand the fact that I do this. But you know, I'll say this to you. I'm assuming you have a Muslim background, and just for the sake of the audience, this is the way in Islam a Muslim responds to speaking truth to power. There's a phrase in the Quran. Actually, there's a phrase. It's called "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyul azim." Right? In other words, all power and all might is dispensed by God. So, if I'm a victim of oppressive power, then more power to me, inshallah. Right? I mean, that's.
You're not patriotic when you talk like this.
No, well,
you're not patriotic.
Yeah, no, you're right. Hold on. We talked about that in the initial part. This is probably the most. You know what? I'll be honest with you guys. As an outsider, as somebody, when I come to these kinds of gatherings, A, it's a nice reality break for me. Okay, and B, when I think about 1776, 1778, 1780, 1800s, Jefferson, Andrew Jackson and his struggle against the banks, the flavor is here. I can see that energy is like the authentic Americans are actually here, sir. You know, and other people are sort of like mentally conditioned and comfortable with their lives and they don't want to rock the boat. But that libertarian spirit is very alive and well here. So it's very patriotic what we're doing. I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I went to the Islamic community. Okay, I want you to listen very carefully. I conduct Friday services at mosques, including the Islamic Center of Long Island, which happens to be one of the models for political activism in the country. It's been, you know, they have senators come, they get all sorts of people. Okay, my father was one of the founding members. Again, that immigrant wave that came, that got moneyed and built these infrastructures. I know all of the people that sit on the board of this mosque personally, and I bought the 9/11 Truth Thesis to them. Okay, the response from them was less than robust. Okay, the response from a lot of the public was great, but the response from them was less than robust. One of them met with Robert Mueller, who was the director of the FBI. They had a closed-door meeting. And this gentleman is the one who said, let's stay away from conspiracy theories, but at the same time he attended the lecture on Catherine Austin when I had Catherine Austin Fitts there. So you're going to get a very weird response, ma'am, when you approach the Muslim community. If you just say, hey, we don't believe Muslims did this, they're going to be like, well, wait a second. Some of them are not won over to the 9/11 Truth Thesis yet. If you want to do outreach and say, we want to know what true Islam teaches, that is going to be embraced.